What's up, Starcraft fans? Stewarding the tier list for Battle Hardened on Chain of Ascension. Brian, let's hear the mutation.
Chain of Ascension is the map where we aid Janara as she fights Amon's champion. To support her, each player needs to stand a guy near and push her along the track to the southeast corner. If we push the fight all the way there, we win. But if Amon's forces support their champion and push them all the way to our corner, we lose. Missiles fly in from the edges of the map and target your buildings, but you can shoot them down to prevent damage. Enemy hybrids reduce damage to 10 if other enemies are nearby. They also buff non-heroic units.
Alright, so we have Edwin and Joni in the call with us today. How are you guys?
Well,
Alright.
yeah, good, thanks.
Alright. Edwin, how do you rank the commanders this week?
The main thing you're looking at is Missile Command. That's sort of part one, and then part two is the combination of Hardened Will and Inspiration. So if you're able to deal well with just pushing through the Hardened Will Inspiration hybrid waves, then you'll be doing pretty well. But if you can't handle Missile Command, then you're not doing too great. So it's if you can handle one, then you're, B-ish. If you can handle both, then you're A or S, depending on how well you can handle both. And if you can't handle either, then you're like D tier. So
D tier. What do you think, Joni?
Yeah, exactly the same. I think Missile Command probably has a slightly bigger impact here, just because the combination of Hardened Will and Inspiration, it sort of is what it is. Whereas Missile Command can end your game pretty quickly. But yeah, exactly what ET said.
Really? I thought of Missile Command more as end the game very slowly and painfully, rather than Poops can end the game very quickly. Missile Command, more of a slow burn. But I get your point. Okay, let's begin. Abathur, where do we have him?
So Abathur is not in terrible shape this week. You can still get quick ultimates out. This map's actually pretty good for biomass farming. Swarm hosts are probably going to be your best defense. The advantage, as I'm sure that we'll come on to later in the tier list, that Abathur has over a lot of the other commanders is your swarm hosts can just burrow and sit at home, and then as and when you're moving the rest of your army around, F2A moves aren't going to be too much of a problem for you. Having said that, it's still not the easiest. You're still going to want to get that critical mass built up. The waves on this map are pretty punchy, as well as the hybrid waves. So dealing with that, you are going to want to get stuff up quickly and efficiently. Probably wanting to be playing P2 for deep tunnel so that your brutalists and swarm hosts have that little bit extra mobility as well. So I had Abathur in B tier.
B tier. What do you think, Edwin?
Yeah, Abathur is one of a couple heroes that really benefits from taking the extra effort to pre-clear the hybrid areas so that you can have your toxic nests planted where the hybrid waves will spawn. Obviously, they won't help against the hybrid, but hopefully they help clear out the little enemies around the hybrid so that you can actually then kill the hybrid. So definitely try to pre-clear and place those if you can. And yeah, just swarm hosts, not the best because they do get point defense droned, but if you have enough of them, they'll get the job done. So I had them in B tier.
B tier? All right. Both of you have Abathur in B tier. Let's put it in B. Prestige-wise, second one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Something that wasn't mentioned, but Abathur will float a lot of minerals this game. So you want to use every single spare mineral you have to make drones and extra spore crawlers in a spot that's kind of not in your base so that the missiles won't go to your base directly. Or at least some of them won't. Anyway, B tier. Let's move on. Alarak, where do we have him?
Alarak has destroyers, which are pretty good for dealing with the missiles. As long as you pay a little bit of attention, I'd recommend having some on patrol and just have a pack of 3 or so that you sort of grab and A-click onto any of the nukes just to make sure you get them ahead of time. In main army, Ascendants and Supplicants with the Mothership, and Alarak himself does pretty well for pushing through this map. And as long as you're careful and don't lose too many units for no reason, then you won't run out of steam by the end, and you should be just fine. So I had him in A tier.
Losing is for no reason. I feel personally attacked now. My Donnie. What do you think, Joni?
Yeah, speaking of losing units for no reason, no, I totally agree, and I think that like at this stage in the game, sort of having use of control groups and stuff is not too much to ask of a player. But yeah, exactly the same. Destroyers patrolling, mothership and Alarak, plus your additional bits and pieces there for pushing. Um, Mechanically it is a bit, but it's really not too bad. You've basically got one control grouped sort of death ball to move around and another at home for defense. So actually, I had Alarak. Yeah, A to B, I had him, but yeah, very very happy with A tier.
All right, both of
And
you
P3
have.
is-
Yeah, both of you have Alarak in A tier. Let's put him in A tier. Prestige wise, third one. You want the third one, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm a bit iffy about. Yes, you can make control groups, and yes, I've done that before. I have said to myself, just have destroyers patrol the edges, and I'll just use this one control group. I will not use the F2. I will not use the all army hotkey. And at some point in the game, I forgot. Like it doesn't take a whole lot of mistakes. It takes one mistake to just move all your destroyers out of your base. That's the only thing I have to work out. And I think the last time we did this tier list, we did factor that in. But both of you said Alarak's in A tier. Let's put Alarak in A tier. Prestige wise, third one. Let's move on. Artanis. Where do we have? Oh, wait. Arcturus. Where do we have him?
So bunkers are good. As we discovered last week, bunkers are good. They are also hit scan, or the troopers inside them are also hit scan. So that's extremely useful. P3 obviously is very, very good here. You want stuff that packs a bit of a punch, particularly against the sort of big extra armored hybrids and stuff. So pushing with P3 troopers sort of absolutely works. The nuke on your top bar is also exceptionally useful for taking out sort of the hybrid spawns and stuff. But yeah, I had Arcturus in S tier. I don't think there's any reason why, with a decent liberal spread of bunkers in your base, you really shouldn't have any problems here.
What do you think, Edmund?
Yeah, I would recommend having. I had like a half dozen Earth Splitters as well, so you can kind of pre-clear out the basic units around the hybrid so that they're no longer hardened willed, except for any air units, and then you can send in your actual troopers, so you're not wasting nukes on hybrid that only take 10 damage at a time. And then they're also helpful, obviously, for clearing the main lane. You do want to be a little bit careful. Don't just, sling units in and lose them over and over. But a few Earth Splitter ordinances give you the resource efficiency you need to just have a really easy breezy time. So I had him in S tier.
All right, both of you put Arcturus in S tier. Let's do S tier. Third prestige, right?
Yeah.
All right. So let's move on. Artanis, where do we have him?
Artanis is hurting a little bit this week. He doesn't really have much against the missile command, and Hardened Will is kind of a pain if you're going Dragoons or really anything as well. He doesn't have a great, his splash damage is High Templar, so you can use that, but that's really not doing anything against missile command. And then without splash damage, trying to target fire the non-hybrid units to kill them is going to be a massive pain. So I don't think he's going to have a great time. I had him in D tier.
D tier. What do you think, Joni?
Yeah, very similar in the sense that Artanis does encounter quite a lot of suffering this week. That doesn't really have great answers to missiles. I was playing around with trying to get like Mass Phoenix basically patrolling, sort of very similar to Alarak, and you just need a lot of them. It's simply not as effective as the destroyers and stuff. Also playing around with trying to storm nukes and stuff, and it's just, yeah, the whole experience is pretty painful. Solar bombardment is good against the hybrid, which is a bonus, but it's not a bonus to the extent that it's going to make your life really any easier. I had him D to E tier.
Okay, both of you had him in D tier. Let's put Artanis in D tier. No prestige because D tier is considered bad. Dehaka. Where do we have him?
So, Dehaka's early game is extremely rough. The fact that you need to get Glevig's Den out before you have really much of an answer at all to missiles is extremely rough. Like, basically, your only option before that is popping Primal Wardens out and having them sort of do stuff, but it is seriously hard work. Having said that, once he is up and running, and you've gone into creeper hosts, etc., he is then extremely good, like very, very strong indeed. Play P2, pop a pack leader, that'll take out pretty much the entirety of the hybrid waves, etc. So that's pretty low maintenance. Pushing again, use a different pack leader, like nice and easy. So he plays pretty normally once he's got himself the tools to deal with missile command. It's just extremely rough to get there. So I had him B to C tier.
B to C. What do you think, Edmund Home?
Yeah, I had him in B tier because it is hard to get set up, but once you get set up, you can kind of just steamroll this map extremely quickly. It's kind of Dehaka's dream in terms of how it works. You just pop a pack leader here, there, and make your way right down the way. So as long as you can survive the early game, you'll do really, really well. But obviously, early game, bit rough. So B tier.
All right, both of you are okay with B tier. Let's put Dehaka in B tier. I would just like to highlight something that Stickspender said last time we did this mutation. He said that Dehaka, on his own, no enemies, no attack waves, no other mutators, just missile command. Nothing else will struggle. You guys both highlighted that it is difficult for Dehaka to get past the early game. I'm wondering if we're not kind of downplaying just how difficult it is to get out of the early game as Dehaka.
So I mean, it is difficult, but the thing with this map is this map does give you like a really significant amount of ramp time. Like you are not being forced to do anything particularly early on this map. So I personally, from my point of view, I found it. Yes, it was complicated. Yes, it was a struggle. I think the first time I tried it, um, I lost my first hatchery literally as soon as the second one got up because he doesn't have any means of repairing or anything.
Exactly.
But like it is slightly chaotic, but with a bit of refinement, it's actually like it's not complicated. You just have to be quite purposeful with how you sort of go about Dehaka's early game. So I kind of felt that like although it's not necessarily the easiest, like that first sort of 5.5, maybe up to 7 minutes, if you're being a bit sort of sloppy like I was with your macro, I do think it is like eminently sort of get throughable, basically.
All right, fair enough. Let's put Dehaka in B tier. Let's move on. Phoenix, where do we have him?
Phoenix does pretty well at punching through the hybrid waves. He's not incredible against the missile command. You do have your sentries, but again, there is the F2 problem, and they're rather expensive. But you can kind of just call Dallas through most of the rest of the map, and then sentry gas can be used on sentries until you have enough of those. So he'll do all right, but not terribly great. So I had him in B tier as well.
B tier. What do you think, Joni?
Yeah, sort of. I was using carriers primarily to deal with missile command, but exactly like ET said, you've got the sort of F2 issue, and it's pretty unavoidable with Phoenix. Yeah, he basically plays very similarly to Alarak, but sort of I think like a little bit more fiddly. I had him, yeah, B tier as well.
B tier. Okay, both of you have Phoenix in B tier. Let's put him in B tier. Prestige wise, second one?
Yes.
All right. Let's move on. Han and Horner, where do we have him?
So I I had a massive struggle with this one, actually. I must admit, like I did not have an enjoyable time here. Um, you basically like they have all of the tools in theory to deal with this. Like they're a Terran commander, so they can repair buildings. They have like decent enough defense in the sense you can use some of the like the cheaper end of Horner's units plus Reapers plus turrets potentially to deal with some of the missile command stuff. And then potentially leveraging your like your top bar cooldowns, particularly strike fighters, etc., to deal with like the hybrid spawns and stuff. Having said all of that, like using all of those tools effectively, um, I found it to be a complete nightmare basically, and particularly against like air comps, air hybrids, etc. I found it like even rougher. So I almost undoubtedly like mechanical failings on my part there. But I found this one like quite difficult to deal with, despite them sort of on paper having a lot of tools. I had Han and Horner in C to D tier.
C to D. What do you think, Edmund?
Yeah, I mean, they technically have the tools, but kind of not really. I don't think they're going to have a great time this week. Obviously, strike fighters don't help against the missile command at all, which is a big saving grace for them in a lot of mutators. At least we have those, and they do help with the clearing. Your top bars can help with the hybrid pretty well, but the actual dealing with the missiles and whatnot, kind of a pain. You don't have very good hit scan. Obviously, you have like Reapers and things like that, but you have to manually fly the Reapers, so pain in the butt. Yeah, I had them in C tier.
C tier. Okay. Both of you said C tier. Actually, yeah, both of you did say C tier. Let's put Hot and Horror in C tier. Prestige wise, first one or second one?
So 2-2, I think recommended P3 for this one in order to really go mass strike fighter platforms. When I tried it, I found the ramp was a bit too slow. There is inevitably an element of my macro being a problem there. But yeah, I really struggled with that, so I don't know if I'm being honest, but I would guess P1.
All right, first Prestige then. It's interesting how we're saying that for Han and Hunter, they technically have the tools, but in reality, it's quite difficult. But we gave him a lower tier than Dehaka, who I'm not sure does have the tools to deal with this the missile command. Anyway, moving on.
Think,
yeah,
I think that you know they do in theory have the tools, but actually in execution, their tools are like really not very good. Whereas Dehaka in theory doesn't have the tools, but actually the execution of it is extremely straightforward, and you also only have the first sort of few minutes of real panic, and then Dehaka
there, though.
sort of
you can't just die there though if you don't know how to do things.
You can. It's more like if you have there's quite a few commanders that can at least somewhat deal with missile command, and if you get someone who can remotely help you with missile command as Dehaka, then as soon as you get up to your pack leaders, you can steamroll the whole map and basically win before nukes even come out. In which case it doesn't matter too much. But that's why he's only B tier, because you do need to have an ally that's at least helping with that some. But there's a lot of allies that can just deal with missile command if they need to.
So would you say that Dehaka in that case is doing the heavy load, or the ally is doing the heavy load, or is it more of an equal contribution?
I think if you're just dealing with missile command and you're like any of the commanders with hit scan, of which there are a fair amount, then you're not doing much. Like the main pain of missile command is if you have to do it yourself and then also clear the map. Like Raynor would be a good example of like, it's hard to split enough units off to deal with the missiles and then still have the firepower to punch through Inspiration and Hardened Will. Whereas Dehaka can just absolutely annihilate everything else on the map besides missile command.
Besides the mutation. All right, let's finally move on.
It's 2 out of 3 mutators he's handling.
That makes sense. Let's move on. Karax, where do we have him?
Karax is sitting pretty this week because he does have hit scan cannons. You do need to be a little bit careful with them because when the nukes come in, they'll have like 5-point defense drones flying in front of them. So you want to make sure that you're actually shooting the nuke and not those with your Kadaran monoliths, because they are a slow firing unit. But then you have top bars as well to help with nukes if you need it. And you've got pretty good clearing potential with the top bars and cannons and whatever else you need to do. Units, even if you want to make those, so he's going to do pretty well this week. I had him in S tier.
S tier. What do you think, Joni?
Yeah, he's got lots and lots of very useful things. Monoliths, carriers, repair beam, top bars. Um, like the hybrid waves can be taken out by pretty much top bar usage alone. P1 or P3, like I suspect P2 is entirely doable as well. So yeah, Karax has a lot of tools this week. I had him in S tier.
Okay, both of you have an S tier. Let's put an S tier. Not second prestige though. Which prestige? Third one?
I'd say third.
All right.
Third, first, probably first. Probably third. But I think he's pretty well equipped to deal with it in general terms this week, I think.
All right. Let's move on. Kerrigan, where do we have him?
So Kerrigan is again having a bit of a rough time this week. She's got very few tools at all to deal with missile command. You're sort of probably looking at spores in the early game. Getting some hydras out is going to be pretty crucial, just overwhelming stuff with a massive hydras. Omega worms can be useful for kind of just generally like spamming buildings and hoping that the important ones are not getting targeted. But in general terms, like you are effectively playing a sacrificial building strategy with Kerrigan and hoping that you get enough worms out to basically try and overwhelm missile command to a certain extent. Her hero is very useful for dealing with stuff as well. I think in particular P2 with the ability to have the sort of fork lightning stuff is very, very useful indeed. But yeah, she has reasonably sort of similar problems to Dehaka in terms of a bit of a rough ramp, not too bad at dealing with stuff once she sort of comes online. But she's also, even hero soloing, particularly if you're going P2, she is like a little bit more delicate, particularly than like, the pack leaders or something like that. So not the easiest of times. I had her B to C tier.
B to C. What do you think, Edpenholm?
Yeah, I think the one saving grace she has is Hydralisks attack relatively quickly and are relatively cheap. So if you just focus heavily on microing Kerrigan on the front line with Omega Worms and then just have packs of Hydralisks all over your bases, then you should do decently well. It's not an ideal solution, and you do have to get to the Hydralisks, but once you get there, she's a little worse at punching through the enemies than Dehaka is, but she's a little better at defending against missile command, a good bit better. So yeah, I had her in B tier.
B tier. Okay, both of you had Kerrigan in B tier. Let's put Kerrigan in B tier. Prestige-wise, third one?
Third or second, yeah.
Third or second. All right, B tier. Let's move on. Nova. Where do we have him?
Nova has technically Marines, but they're kind of a pain for dealing with missile command. Her Liberators don't like Hardened Will at all. You do have Ravens with some splash damage, which is helpful, and Nova with some splash damage, which is helpful, and you do have your top bars and your nuke. So you can clear out the hybrid waves relatively effectively. She'll do decent work, but she's not super hard carrying or anything, so I also had her in B tier.
B tier. What do you think, Joni?
Yeah, it's kind of it's always a peculiar one with missile command when in theory you look at the Terran commanders and you kind of think actually all of these people ought to be able to deal with this like pretty effectively, and then they sort of don't. And Nova is one of those ones, like ET said, you're looking at turrets, Marines, and using repair to deal with it, and it's maybe not as easy as you want it to be, but yeah, exactly. As ET said, mech push as usual. Probably looking at P1 here. I had her B to C tier as well.
B to C. All right. Both of you had Nova in B. Let's put Nova in B. Prestige-wise, what do you want here? First one or third one?
I think you could go either having the shotgun's kind of nice to help clear out the enemies around the hybrid so that you aren't having to deal with Hardened Will anymore.
That makes sense.
But you could go either one because you can also just do infiltration drone around the hybrid to blow them up as well. So
Yeah. I'm thinking with the first one, you can get more of the anti-missile unit of your choice. If you want Marines or Liberators, you can do that. Or I could just go turrets and repair. That also works. Anyway, Nova is B tier. Oh wait, where is it? Put it there. There, B tier. Yeah, Raynor. Where do we have him?
Sorry, it's me. Sorry, complete. Right. Raynor is actually having not a terrible time this week. He's got bunkers that hold Marines, which are hit scan. He's got BCs and top bars with which he can push. It's sort of. I'm always slightly disappointed for Raynor whenever I pop the Hyperion out that it's never quite as good, pretty much under all circumstances, as I want it to be. But it is still decent enough in conjunction with other things, bearing in mind that you've really only got sort of 4 hybrid waves to deal with here. The other thing you can do, and this is another commander where like pre-clearing those areas and just absolutely coating them in spider mines is an extremely sort of effective way of dealing with it. And as I mentioned, like you only need to do that 4 times and you are basically living the dream. I figure not a vast difference, possibly P3 for like quicker top bars and more like pushing mass. But realistically, I think P0 is probably very doable as well. I actually had Raynor in A tier this week.
A tier. What do you think, Edmund?
yeah, he's able to completely deal with missile command, which is very nice. I think in theory, yeah, it's like you could do the Vulture method. You only need like 1 or 2 Marines in each bunker. You really don't want to dedicate too many Marines because then you just don't have enough supply left over. You could go bio. I think you probably want to go battle cruisers here because they do rapid, low damage fire while still being quite tough. So they're not going to die as easily as the Marines out in the front against the hybrid waves. So you have them against the hybrid. Don't use your Yamatos until Hardened Will is gone. Of course, Hardened Will be gone, and then you'll queue up the Yamatos, and then a random regular unit will walk into range, and you'll cry. But that's fine. But yeah, I had him in A tier.
All right, nice. Raynor's in A tier this week. Very awesome. Prestige wise, no prestige, you guys said?
0 or 3.
0 or 3.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on. Stet Boy, where do we have him?
Stetmann doesn't have like a perfect answer to the missiles, but he does have a pretty good answer, which is Hydralisks and healing. And then Super Gary just clears the entire map by himself. So he's going to do pretty well this week. You can just build some spores in the early game if you need to, because obviously the healing zone does not affect your buildings, though they will slowly regenerate on their own as they're kind of Zerg, and you can also use repair.
Kind of Zerg.
And then once you get Super Gary out, you can kind of steamroll. So I had him in A tier.
A tier. What do you think, Joni?
Yeah, very, very similar thoughts. I found basically that Stetmann, even with missile command, it's very difficult to kill him on this map with these mutators. So Super Gary just sort of does everything basically. Unit choice is completely up to you, sort of, like ET said, definitely Hydra to defense, but then you've got Infestors are extremely good for this map. Corruptors can help deal with missile command to a certain extent. And obviously he's got repair, regeneration, etc. So yeah, I had him in A tier as well.
All right. Both of you have an A tier. Let's put Stet Boy in A tier. Prestige wise, second one, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. Forgot to put them. Editor, you're gonna have to put Stet Boy. I forgot to switch the face over. You're gonna have to switch it over. Also cut out this part. Let's move on. Stukov, where do we have him?
Right, we are, much to my chagrin, we are back to boring P3 Stukov this week. However, it is extremely good. P3 just completely neutralizes everything basically, and sort of takes out missile command as he very, very slowly shuffles down the map and then takes out everything else as well. So basically getting bunkers up and running, like, you are simply not going to have any problems at all. Get your barracks up so that you've got those Marines just in case of emergencies. But the reality to it is that Stukov has an extremely easy time. It is point and click this week. So Stukov S tier.
Stukov S tier. What do you think, Edwin Home?
Yeah, it's a pretty easy week. You don't want to be, I mean, you don't have to, but it's nice to be slightly cognizant and maybe target fire Marines onto nearby nukes and whatnot, because sometimes they'll come out right next to a bunker, and by the time a Marine pops out, it's blowing up the bunker. But as long as you put those far enough away from your central buildings, all you're ever going to lose is only 400 minerals, which is a lot, but, you'll still win. So, S tier.
What my takeaway from all of this is that one of my videos finally has the word cognizant in it. I feel so sophisticated now because we have some class and distinction in our tier list videos. Well done. All right, let's move on. Swann, where do we have him? Oh wait, S tier, yeah.
Swann is quite worse Karax because his turrets aren't hit scan, but he does have a lot of projectiles from his turrets, so they'll do decent work. You have the laser drill can help as well against nukes and things like that, especially if you target fire with P1. I guess you could go and it'll deal with a lot of missiles pretty quickly. But it's nice to have the top bars for clearing. I mean, this map is one of the best maps for concentrated beam because you're pushing down a straight path basically. And then the nuke is very good against like the second and fourth-ish hybrid sets. So it's nice to have those, but you could go P1 if you wanted to. Wraiths will do pretty well for clearing, turrets for defense at home. Wraiths can come back to help with nukes. Just do it early because they do have to punch through the point defense drones. So he's not as good as Karax, but he's going to do fairly well this week. I had him in B tier.
B tier. What do you think, Joni?
Yeah. Like Swann's one of those ones where he's simply got, like ET said, you can get that mass of turrets up, and in conjunction with the laser drill itself, you're unlikely to struggle too much against missile command. Partially because like repairing for free, etc., as well means that you have a relatively comfortable existence at home. Um, I found pushing with Swann actually to be quite difficult. Like ET said, you've got concentrated beam for the sort of main encampments and stuff, but those hybrid wave, particularly the first one actually, when you do have to deal with it quite fast as well, was a bit of a nuisance. So I had him in B tier for that reason, that actually Swann is one of those commanders that does deal quite well with missile command, but I found had a slightly rougher time against the other two mutators. So I had him in B tier as well.
You don't have a top bar for the first hybrid? When does it spawn for you? 9 minutes or earlier?
I think it's
You do.
9:30 unless you pre-spawn it on
It's
accident.
9 minutes unless you pre-spawn, so you should have the Ares and your second
Yeah.
concentrated beam for that one.
Yeah, I think your second wave of Ares should be available for it.
Yeah. So I think it's just a case of bad. It's something. This feels very off. We're gonna put Swann at a lower tier than Alarak. This feels very off to me.
I don't know.
Does it not?
Alarak was, I think, way better than Swann this week.
Way better than Swann.
Yeah.
No repair.
There's one large difference between you and ICTG. I unbound my F2 key like 6 years ago, so that helps with Alarak a lot. I think I couldn't F2 if I wanted to,
Even if you wanted to.
but that may be the literal difference. Because if you don't have that issue, then destroyers deal pretty much perfectly with the missiles.
They don't you can't repair them though. They will get damaged by the splitter missiles. They're not a perfect solution.
They did, but in my experience, they're very cheap. You only need like 6 per base, which isn't that much. And the mothership itself can basically free deal with the first and second hybrid waves pretty much. You don't need many units for those. And then after that, you have like Ascendants and Supplicants, at least for me. And it was very easy. I think he has a much easier time pushing than Swann does on this one, at least against the hybrid.
Yeah, I
you just fire off psionic orbs, they clear all the units around the hybrid, and then you one tap them with Ascendants from there.
Okay. You guys put Swann in B. Let's put Swann in B. Prestige wise,
0, 1, or 2, I'd say.
not the third one.
Yeah, not the third one, I'd say, but
I think you
could
do
go
want
P1.
top
I know
bars
some people
here.
love P1.
For,
I know, but
Yeah.
there's some people who really love P1, and I'm not going to tell you that you can't use it here. I think it would be fine. I wouldn't, but you definitely could.
all right, let's move on. Tychus, where do we have him?
So Tychus is good, and I think he's probably as someone who plays Tychus very very regularly. This is literally the only time
I
that
also
you
like
would
playing on
ever.
easy mode.
Yeah, exactly. Like, why would you put in any more effort than you need to? It
Exactly.
does also teach you to use control groups. Like playing P2 Tychus, like again, F2 is not a thing. So it does make your life easier in that respect. His static are really good because they're hit scan. And that's the only time that I'll ever say that Tychus' static is good. But in this instance, it actually is. It will keep you alive easily long enough for you to get outlaws out. At which point you leave 2 knocking around in your bases and then push with Tychus. Tychus is the armor piercing rounds are also extremely useful for this mutation. The only thing that I found with him was that when you are dealing with the hybrids, it's really important to take them out in the right order. You need to take out the weak ones first. If you are trying with Tychus to chew into one of the dominators or something before having like pre-cleared the other hybrid, you're going to be there all day, and it creates a world of hurt. So you do need to be like, again, let's keep it classy. You do need to be cognizant of what you're doing when you're using Tychus. But he does deal with this in a pretty straightforward manner, certainly. So I had him in A tier.
You use up all your brain cells before the word cognizant and just functioning after. Just stopped functioning after. Where did you put him?
Where did I put him? A tier.
There we go.
Of P2.
We remembered where we put him. Congrats. What do you think I put him?
Yeah, I think he's pretty darn good this week. I will say, while his static defense is good, it's only good very early on in the game. Past that, it's pretty expensive, and they're so squishy. I think it takes like 2 missiles to kill them if you aren't repairing them. So definitely rely on your outlaws as soon as you can for that, as much as you can. But you can clear through the map pretty quickly, and big red button's pretty nice for clearing out everything around the hybrid, and then the Odin just kind of wipes through the hybrid from there for, again, probably set like 2 and 4, or 2, 3, and 4, depending on how slow you're going. He's pretty good, but he's definitely not quite as easy as like Arcturus and Stukov and whatnot, so I had him in A tier as well.
All right. Both of you guys had him in A tier. Let's put Tychus in A tier. Prestige wise, second one, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Vorazun, where do we have him?
Vorazun does have hit scan for dealing with missile command in the form of Corsairs. She's going to have somewhat of a rough time against the hybrid with most of her typical attacks because the Dark Templar are not going to auto-target onto the units that they should be killing right away. They're mostly going to waste their attacks dealing only 10 damage to hybrid a lot of the time. But you can use Gravity Well or a Black Hole and target fire things down. You can deal with air units okay with the Corsairs, but you do need to have a lot of them at home. She's already got a pretty expensive army, and having to split it up to deal with missile command and then also try to push hurts because you want to have all of that expensive army in one place if you can. So she'll do all right. She'll pull her own weight, but she's not going to be carrying, in my opinion. So I had her in C tier.
C tier. What do you think, Joni?
Yeah, I totally agree. I think Vorazun, her biggest problem on this is just being gas starved. Like, you need a lot of Corsairs to effectively deal, particularly if you get an air comp or you get the air hybrids. You need a lot of Corsairs to deal with everything at once, and this is one of those ones where like control groups, you can control shift destroyers out of your F2 group if that's how you want it. Making like multiple groups of different Corsairs here Again, I've intellectually just sort of shot my bolt a bit early just then. And so sort of dealing with multiple different control groups of Corsairs, I found sort of slightly sort of like cognitive overload. You sort of need a lie down after playing this. So yeah, I sort of again one of those ones where she has in theory got a decent arsenal to deal with this, but using it's very, very difficult, I found. So I had her, yeah, B to C tier.
B to C. Okay, both of you had Vorazun in C tier, or at least are okay with C tier. Let's put Vorazun in C tier. She has 1 prestige. Are we factoring in how Vorazun can basically skip the last hybrid wave with time stop?
Yes, because getting there is the challenge.
All right, fair. Let's. Oh, the last hybrid can be challenging for some commanders though. Like, for example, the next guy, Zagara. Where do we have him?
Also, isn't
Right.
sorry, I was gonna say, yeah, that's relying
Uh,
on your teammate helping you with that with the Vorazun skip, isn't it?
No, you can
Oh, it's
you can just put a black hole, a dark pylon, along the path and recall your allies' units
I guess
or
so,
workers.
yeah.
That's how I do it.
Sure.
I don't need
Sure,
I don't
fair
need
enough,
you to
fair enough.
cooperate. I'll get you workers and your overlords if you don't want to cooperate. You'll cooperate whether you want to or
That
not.
works for me then. Fair enough, fair enough. Sorry, go ahead, Johnny.
no, it's I like it. The classic sort of StarCraft 2 plays Mortal Kombat. Come here. Anyway, right, Zagara. Right, Zagara is having a pretty rough time this week. I sort of I felt that I tried really hard to try and make her better and just failed. Like sort of diverting all of your attention to trying to deal with missile command by like ringing your own base with bile launchers and such. It's simply not as good as it needs to be, and it's incredibly complicated. It's a complete pain, and kind of not worth bothering with. Although it is also your only option. Um, don't play P1 this week. I don't think your Scourge are going to get like pulled all over the place and explode on whatever they find in the first instance. So even getting them out and about is problematic. I played P3. I think using like roach drops plus frenzy, etc. On the hybrid waves at least provides you with like a toolkit to deal with it. Because your exploding units are simply not as effective against heavily armored hybrids, etc. But yeah, in general terms, like Zagara has a really, really rough time this week. I was sort of debating to what extent is she like actively detrimental to the war effort. I don't think she's quite F tier, but I do think she's like significantly worse than anyone else this week. So I had her in E tier.
She's not Peregrine Took in the Mines of Moria level. Oh my Donnie. E tier?
Yes.
What do you think, Evanhelm?
I don't know. I think she'll do well at pushing through the center and everything. So I don't think she's making anything worse on the war effort necessarily. You obviously aren't helping with missile command much at all, but she's not the only commander where that's the case. I think with the Banelings, you just like move command them through the hybrid. They'll explode, not necessarily on the hybrid, kill the units around, and then the Zerglings are actually going to do fairly well. But I don't know. I don't think she's quite E tier. I could see D tier, but E seems a little excessive. I don't think she's going to be much worse than Artanis here.
Have you played Zagara?
I haven't. I'll need to try it because I don't know. That sounds crazy to me. I
You
mean,
have
obviously, I don't think she's a soloer, but
you have basically no anti-air option because any Scourge you make will never connect. They will just hit missiles. It's not very efficient.
see in 1v1 Zerg versus Zerg, you have to like move command your Banelings around constantly a lot of the time to make sure that they don't just split off a single Zergling and get your Baneling to explode on it. I feel like you could just do that with Scourge, but obviously that's a very high APM thing. But I've got that APM, so maybe it would be easier for me. But I could definitely see that being an issue for most people. But it is technically an option. I mean, I don't know. I guess I'd be curious, CTG, if you think she's all the way in E tier.
Just say
she's not
get
helping
good
missile
and
command
be
at
done
all.
with it. My God.
I'm not saying she's doing a lot, but D tier is already not even pulling her own weight. That's C tier, right? But she's at least going to help with the hybrid, and she'll be able to clear the center lane pretty darn effectively.
Not of the air units.
Again, with the Scourge, you should be able to, because you build a batch, you right click them to the area where you want them to actually kill stuff. You wait until they get there, and then you just right click them, shift click on the air units. There's not a lot of air units in the center area on this map most of the time.
The difference, I don't play 1v1, but the difference between that situation and what I'm guessing happens in 1v1 is you not only need to move command your Scourge, you also need to constantly micro them away from randomly flying off to target missiles. It's constant. You have to constantly right click them while you're doing everything else, while you're fighting hybrid, while you're building stuff, while you're.
But they build so fast. It's not like you're like, man, I have to have 50 Scourge on hand the entire game, and I have to keep them alive. It's like, no, there's air units. Okay, batch of Scourge, go kill those air units, then die. I don't care. Like, again, I'm not saying she's going to do everything. I just don't think she's doing an E tier level work. Like, most of the stuff is ground. There's going to be like a half a dozen air units or whatever in each of the encampments. So even if you're only clearing the ground units, you're still killing 80% of the troops on the middle path, and you're still killing most of the hybrid wave and its defenses. Again, it's not like she's doing a lot. D tier isn't saying she's doing a lot. It's just saying she's not doing. I mean, I don't know. If you guys both think it's E tier, I'm fine with that. I just felt like it was a little excessively bad for her.
I think she's F tier, but
maybe.
It's not my tier list. If I'm just letting you really explain your position. Like I need to have I basically, once this video goes up, you can't defend your positions. So I'm asking you to defend them now, so that any comments that will come afterwards are already addressed in the video. You know?
Yeah.
That's why. That's why.
Sure. I mean, I'm fine with E tier. That's cool with me.
That's not what I said, but okay.
I know you didn't say that, but that's what Johnny said. So I'll go down to E tier at least.
Okay, so what, we're doing E tier?
I think so. I do think she is. I think she is just notably worse than Artanis basically this week.
That's
okay.
Fair.
Zagara E tier. Let's move on to someone that is not E tier. Zeratul. Where do we have him?
Zeratul has his sentries, and he has the monoliths as well, which Tesseract monoliths, which do pretty well against the turrets, and the sentries both do well against the missiles, and then also reshield your buildings, including your Tesseract monoliths, to make sure they don't randomly die. So having a few of those mixed in with monoliths, pretty good. Zeratul himself, quite strong, and his main army can be quite strong as well. You can go cannons if you want to, just to kind of reinforce all of that. They're not hit scan, but you can use them to help push and clear hybrid waves and things like that. And then the Abathur, doesn't matter if the enemies have increased armor if they're all drones. So pretty handy. I had him in A tier.
A tier. What do you think, Joni?
Yeah, very similar views. The monoliths are excellent. Don't do what I did the first time that I tried this and default to the sort of slowing crystal instead. That was an immediate F10Q, having made that mistake. But
you misclicked.
he is.
We believe you.
Yeah, well, absolutely. I was going to say, having exhausted all of my intellectual power on trying to play Vorazun. But no, his monoliths are extremely useful for this, and also particularly when you're playing P2, obviously everything scales at a rate where actually dealing with missile command, even by the end of the game, is pretty good. Personally, I'm a huge fan of using his army on this map. I think the sort of Disruptor Immortal combination is extremely strong. And deals very, very well with these mutators, actually, again, because you've just got that really nice power ramp throughout the entire game with him. I was sort of actually S to A tier. I felt that he kind of really doesn't sort of have too many issues with this. Having said that, I think I would probably lean towards A tier as well, just because he's not sort of free to the extent that like Stukov or someone like that is. So very happy with him in A tier.
All right, Zeratul A tier. Prestige wise, all right. Which prestige? Second one, or even
Yes.
no
Yeah, I'd say so.
prestige? Better than
You
no
could
prestige.
go no prestige. Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess it really depends on, do you want to spam cannons or do you want to make an army? If you're wanting to actually make an army, there's an argument for going P0. But if you're planning on doing cannon spam regardless, then there's like no downside to going P2. So
All right. So do we have a double S?
I don't think so. No.
Top of S?
I'd probably Stukov.
I can sense the the chagrin and the resentment.
That's
Probably.
it's-
No,
I think-
I was debating between Stukov and Arcturus.
All right. And
I
then,
think
think-
it's-
I think Stukov's probably a little bit more just brain deadedly easy. And
This
then
is it, it's-
Arcturus and then Karax.
all right.
it's very telling. You've got someone who plays extremely lazily and with very low APM like me, who is still reticent to put Stukov at the top because it's just too easy.
The class and sophistication level is off the charts right now. My darling, reticent. I'll have to Google what that means, but I'll try to use that in my next video. That sounds awesome. I feel my IQ raising from 60 to 61 just by hearing that. Amazing.
You need to be more cognizant of what reticent means,
Oh, are you sure that's correctly used?
I feel like. Yes, cognizant means like having knowledge of. So.
Are you? All right, let's not.
Like I'm cognizant of cognizance meaning.
Amazing. Let's continue. Who's top of A?
I think probably either Zeratul or Tychus.
Yeah, I think Zeratul.
All right, who's next?
Tychus,
Oh.
then probably Raynor.
I think Raynor's doing
is
pretty
the
well for himself this week.
He has the freest time with missile command. I think he probably has a worse time with actually pushing the map than Alarak and Stetmann, but he's going to have a much, much easier time with the missile command, which is the most painful one. So
Yeah.
Yeah,
and then
agreed.
I think Alarak is better than Stetmann because he does actually have like good hit scan.
Oh, see, I must admit, I was going to say the other way around only because Stetmann's got repair. But I suspect much for muchness, really, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean there is shield regen. I think when I played, I lost one pylon with Alarak in the very early game, and that was just bad RNG. It got like 3 missiles at once on it. But yeah, I could see either way. I mean, he doesn't have repair, but he does have shield regen, and you do get the mothership out very fast, and then it's just 1 or 2 destroyers, and then you're pretty much set until significantly further on in the game. But they're very close.
Who's top of B?
I think probably Swann for all of
Yeah,
for all the hard time we gave him. Like he does have a significantly easier time with missile command from the off than any of the others.
Yeah,
Then
probably Abathur.
Probably Abathur. Yeah.
all right. Then
Then
Phoenix?
here we go. Oh.
I
Phoenix.
think maybe Phoenix.
I think I'd certainly be inclined to have Nova. I found Nova and Dehaka to be probably the 2 most problematic.
Yeah.
So probably Nova Dehaka at the bottom.
This or this?
I think
Dehaka below Nova, I think, because Nova does have some hit scan. That's you can get a pack of Marines out pretty quickly, and you have repair. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Nova's the pack eater of those pack of Marines. So who's top of C tier?
Vorazun,
Ooh.
you can skip the last
Yes.
hybrid set. So
Hey.
if you can pull that off, above. If you can't pull that off, below.
All right. And Artanis and Zagara in D and E. All right. I think we only have 8 commanders. We have 8 commanders in above B. So I don't think we need to do the synergies, but I can already see Swann plus anyone would be a good synergy better than Karax, because Swann just takes care of all the missiles, and whoever is left will just take care of the map better than Karax on his own.
Absolutely. Like,
because Swann is absolutely an A-tier commander. Anyway, hope you enjoyed that. Thank you for watching. If you have an idea for what also do, please leave in a comment. I will see you guys next time.